plan. I'm Khalid Sheikh, NJDOT Project Manager for this project. We have a busy day ahead of us, and it is terrific to see all of you to help us make the most of it. At this time, I would like to introduce and invite Mike Russo, Assistant Commissioner in Planning, Multimodal, and Grants Administration at NJDOT, to provide welcome remarks.
Thank you. Hey, good morning, everybody. Hey, plenty of good seats down in front. Good morning. Thank you for the interest and thank you for taking the time to participate in this event. We have close to over 200 registered participants in today's session, representing a broad cross-section of stakeholders. Even more encouraging is close to half of the participants today were at Safety Summit #1. So that's extremely encouraging. We have representatives from state and federal agencies, transportation authorities, municipal and county governments, metropolitan planning organizations, and TMAs. We also have law enforcement, emergency medical services, health, education, academia, and the consultant community. And we have bicycle, pedestrian, and transportation safety advocates, as well as community-based groups. It's safe to say that all of you have taken time out of your busy day today because you find the number of fatalities on our roads to be completely unacceptable. In 2019, there were close to 37,000 fatalities nationally on our roads. In New Jersey, we had 565 fatalities. 179 of those involved pedestrians. Some have referred to this as a national public health crisis. And whether you support Towards Zero Death or Vision Zero, I think we all agree that the only acceptable number of fatalities on our roads is 0. I was at a conference of national transportation officials recently, and the speaker, Patrick McKenna, president of AASHTO, posed the following question. Can you imagine if on tomorrow's evening news it was reported that a 737 went down, taking with it 150 lives? And the same was reported the next day, and then the next day. The number of fatalities on our nation's roads is equivalent to one 737 going down every day and a half. Think about that. Your participation in today's summit and the role you play in the development and implementation of the 2020 Strategic Highway Safety Plan can help change that. In Safety Summit #1, we provided some background information on what a Strategic Highway Safety Plan is, and we discussed our plans for creating the 2020 update. Today, we are going to focus on specific emphasis areas and strategies for driving down serious injuries and fatalities related to each of those emphasis areas. More importantly, you will have an opportunity to participate in discussions about data and potential strategies. The success of today's summit is dependent upon your participation. Our team has put together data summaries, examples of existing strategies, and proven countermeasures that will help support today's discussions. And ultimately, all of this will help develop action plans for implementation. We have 6 well-qualified team leaders that have been selected to lead today's breakout sessions and the development of action plans for each emphasis area. Dan will be introducing them shortly, I believe. I want to thank each of them for their willingness to volunteer and take on this role as safety champions in the development of this plan. For today's breakout sessions, we have done our best to get everyone into the sessions that you indicated was a priority to you. We have also strived to get a good mix of representatives in each session to bring different perspectives to the conversation. Today is a working day, and I hope you make the most of it by sharing your thoughts with the teams. We're here to listen to what you have to say. We are all working towards the same goal, achieving 0 deaths on our roads. And it can happen if we work together in a collaborative effort. I wish you the best today, and I look forward to participating in today's sessions with you and hearing the outcome of today's conversations later in the day. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Next, I would like to introduce and invite Eric Heitman, Director of the Division of Highway Traffic Safety at the New Jersey Department of Law and Public Safety, for his welcome.
Good morning. Thanks, Khalid. I appreciate it. So, real quickly, I just want to say thanks to everyone for being here again, and thanks for enthusiastically participating in this process. It's such an important process, and you know, is pretty underappreciated sometimes. But the process is on track and on schedule, thanks to everyone's enthusiasm and participation and commitment. As well as their generous time and, of course, willingness to attend a ton of meetings. Continued thanks to our consultants at GPI and FHI, as well as to Ranjit and the folks at Civic Eye. You're going to see a very powerful video in a few minutes, which certainly puts things in perspective. Like Mike said, today's all about emphasis areas. So to that end, I want to thank our esteemed emphasis area team leaders who've generously agreed to take on this responsibility. Mostly, you know, due to their passion and their desire to push the needle. Every one of them is an advocate and are all well respected in our traffic safety community. So again, today's about emphasis areas and ideas and strategies for prioritizing those strategies to have the most impact on reducing crashes and moving us toward 0 deaths. I want to make it clear that everyone's ideas are valuable and we want everyone's input. So in the event you don't have time to get your point across to a facilitator today, or whether you can't make it into a particular emphasis discussion group or whatever, we want everyone to get their ideas and suggestions submitted. And there are many ways to have your voice heard with regard to any or all of our emphasis areas, regardless of the session that you're attending today. You know, our only concern is that, you know, our timeline is kind of tight. So this plan is going to be published in July. So just, you know, make sure that we hear what you have to say. You know, we're interested and we want to know what everyone here has to say. The overall goal is that everyone gets where they're going safely, with 0 tragedies on our roads. The expectation for today is that each emphasis group will work to ultimately assemble a plan of effective, innovative strategies and goals to get us to 0. Then all those plans and goals will be aggregated into our overall 5-year strategic highway safety plan. We're all fairly certain that the end of roadway fatalities isn't going to happen overnight. So the key to the success of this plan is perseverance. It's going to take a lot of determination to keep pushing for the next 5 years and to hold one another accountable to our plan and to the strategies that we all agree on. But that resolve is the key to fulfilling our promise of making our roads safe. And that's the plan for the next summit in April. We'll concentrate on action plans and implementation, short-term as well as throughout the next 5 years. So the road to 0 starts right now. I want to thank everyone for your time, and you know, hopefully I'll see you all at some point today. So let's get started. Thanks.
Thank you, Eric. Now we'll show a brief video to set up the tone for the day.
I would say 2,000.
100,000.
125,000.
730,000.
Maybe 500.
800.
10,000.
I'd say 100K.
That's a lot, actually.
75,000.
5,000 or less.
It would be probably about 1 million, approximately. It's hard to tell.
I don't know, like 10,000? That's ridiculous. It's just astronomical.
More than that.
Wow.
Wow. Okay. Wasn't even close.
Oh my God, that's crazy.
Wow.
Per year. Wow, that's scary.
That's a lot.
Ooh.
That is a lot more than expecting.
I think that's a lot of crashes, but I'm not super surprised.
Wow. 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 Drunk driving and falling asleep at the wheel.
Cell phones.
Driver distraction, like cell phones and alcohol.
I would guess texting and driving, 'cause when I'm driving, I see tons of people on their phones, and I would guess alcohol.
Drunk drivers and yeah, just reckless driving.
Definitely texting and driving.
I was gonna say the same thing.
Or driving under the influence.
Texting.
Texting and driving.
Distracted driving?
Yeah. Drunk driving.
DUI, pretty much like, drunk people, drunk and, unfortunately.
I'm gonna say 63.
Like maybe 50K?
I would say 300.
Maybe half of the total.
3,000 a year.
250.
Like 100,000.
Gonna say half too.
Like 80,000.
One too many.
That's a ton.
That's a scary amount.
Yeah, that's a lot. Shouldn't be happening.
In New Jersey alone? I could see how that's an epidemic going on.
Numbers are so high.
Oh, wow.
That's very scary still.
Pretty scary. I grew up in New Jersey, so I'm not surprised because New Jersey is known for their crazy drivers, and it kind of proves that.
I would like to think so. I would hope so.
Think that it would be to improve. I think worth trying.
Yeah, I don't see why not.
0, yes, I do think it's an acceptable number.
I think it's an achievable goal over time. I don't think it's going to happen immediately, but I think potentially the more awareness that's built up, the more likely it is to happen.
Yeah, I was going to say if there's enough awareness being spread around New Jersey, I think we could get to 0.
Yes. Yes.
I think just some awareness would help, just to know that. I know personally I've been in an accident because I was on my phone, and then since then, I don't do that anymore.
I mean, you're never going to eliminate, all death from car accidents. It's just not going to happen. People are going to drive poorly or distracted or drunk, so.
I don't know. It's going to be really tough because a lot of people are not going to really want to pursue that course, I feel like, in a way. You'd have to really, I guess advertise it and really, pound it into people somehow.
I think 0 is a bit ambitious, but it's a good thing to strive towards because if you say 0, you'll definitely lower these, at least by, a decent amount. So.
I think 0 is still a little bit ambitious, yeah.
I don't like that question.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, definitely none.
Yeah.
Nobody.
Not one soul.
I'm not going to answer that question.
Can I just say none?
Yeah, of course, obviously.
It needs to be.
Yeah, I think it does.
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely.
That's a good way to put it. It
Yeah.
really is.
That hit home.
Yeah.
Now I would like to ask Andy Soates, Director of Statewide Planning at NJDOT, to provide recap Safety Summit number 1.
Thank you, Khalid. How about another round of applause for Ranjit and the Civic Eye team for that video? Thank you. Okay, I'm just going to provide a brief recap of Summit number 1. So the overall goal was to engage safety stakeholders in the 2020 Strategic Highway Safety Plan process. So really engaging kind of at a high level without getting into too much detail. That's really what today is for. So the first part of that was providing a personal perspective, which I'll go into a little bit more. The next 3 parts here about explaining a Strategic Highway Safety Plan, explaining the approach to the SHSP update, and then providing an overview of crash data. That was really to get everyone grounded on the same basics that we're all working from. And then after that, the main part of that, our discussion was really to listen. So we gathered some opinions on the most important safety issues, got some stakeholder questions and concerns, and then really kind of the intent was to rally everyone together to keep moving forward. And clearly we were at least somewhat successful because you're all here, so that's great. So thank you. I want to go to a little bit more background on what we covered in the first summit. So we heard from the various executive leaders in New Jersey, and not only our Commissioner Diane Gutierrez-Gichetti from DOT, we also heard from Commissioner, Department of Education, Eric Heitman, Division of Highway Traffic Safety, and also our Federal Highway New Jersey Division Office. We heard a personal story from Robert Nolman of MAD, which was very powerful. And kind of along those lines and along the lines of the video we just saw, our commissioner made, I think, a very important point that was coming up again, is that fatalities, we're going to be talking a lot about numbers in our work here, but fatalities are really more than just numbers. I think her point, our commissioner's point, was that any single life out there means everything to someone. So I think it's important that we keep that in mind. Moving forward on the day, we also talked about some detail of what a strategic highway safety plan is, basically being an umbrella safety plan for the entire state, and pulling together, as you're going to see today, pulling together information and data on a whole variety of different types of crashes, and there it sort of stresses the need to have different expertise and different backgrounds involved in the process. We shared some of the most recent data, and then as I noted before, we also did a lot of listening. So some of the things we heard in the first summit, one was that we needed to make sure we considered equity and vulnerable populations. Another was that we needed to do a better job of communicating in Spanish language. I think we're making some progress there, probably more can be done as well. And then also that we needed to make sure we had adequate representation of various interest groups in the process. So based on some of that input received, we have updated the steering committee membership to increase the number of nonprofit organizations involved. So I guess along the lines of listening, one of the things we did a couple of polls throughout the day on the first summit. And one of them was asking the following question: having seen and heard all of this information, what do you think is the most significant road safety issue in New Jersey? And you can see the resulting word cloud right here. And a lot of the words you might expect are there. But I think one of the key themes that came out of all this is distracted driving. And I think what we're going to find is that distracted driving is going to be a key issue in every single emphasis area that we deal with today. You can imagine, of course, that lane departure, it would be a key part of that, but it's really going to be coming out in every single emphasis area that we deal with. So I think it was a very successful first summit. I'm looking forward to having some additional, more detailed conversation today, and I think that's it for me, so thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Next, I'd like to introduce Dave Kuhn, Project Manager for GPI. We'll talk about the emphasis areas and selection process. Dave.
Thank you, Khalid. How many in the audience, quick participation, how many here were not at Safety Summit 1? Quite a few, quite a few. I'm glad to see you here. You heard Andy give a little bit of recap on Safety Summit 1. Just again, top level, what is a strategic highway safety plan? And the strategic highway safety plan is a 5-year plan to drive down fatalities and serious injuries on all public roads, not just state highways. And it encompasses the 4 E's: engineering and infrastructure, enforcement, education, emergency response, and others, everyone. So, emphasis areas. So what is an emphasis area? So it is a piece of the plan that zeroes in, it's a focus area, where we will develop goals and objectives and strategies and actions that are to be achieved over the next 5 years. So the core working group, as part of this process, looked at emphasis areas that are out there, looked at, starting with the data that we currently have, looked at our data, and then we looked at practices from other states and looked at what makes sense for New Jersey in terms of emphasis areas. And we considered some different options. And these options, some of the options were discussed with the steering committee, and I want to thank the steering committee for their productive input. The number of meetings we've had with the steering, I think we've had 4 already with the steering committee. We talked about emphasis areas, what makes sense, what are some options, and got some input from them. One of the things we need to consider too was keeping the number of emphasis areas to a manageable level too, so we can be productive. So I don't think there's any shock to you, the emphasis areas based on what's on the agenda today. Our emphasis areas are lane departure, intersections, pedestrians and bicyclists, and data, driver behavior, and other vulnerable users. So intersections and pedestrians and bicyclists, New Jersey is a focus state by federal highway because of the amount of fatalities and serious injuries that we have in those areas. Those were selected to be individual emphasis areas. Data, was identified in the last SHSP, but it was not an emphasis area. This time it is. And you can also see that a number of, and I'll move on to the next slide, 2015 versus 2020. So there were 16 emphasis areas in 2015, and in 2020 there are 6 major emphasis areas. And you can see that pretty much all of the items that were in 2015 are identified either as an individual emphasis area or part of a group. So driver behavior includes drowsy and distracted, aggressive drivers, impaired drivers, unlicensed drivers, and unbelted drivers and occupants. Other vulnerable users includes mature drivers and younger drivers, motorcycle safety, motorcyclists, work zone safety, other road workers, emergency medical services, and other first responders. So that helps the conversation where in many cases some of the same strategies would be generated and prevent duplicity in strategies. So the idea here is to focus on those 6. It was presented, there was discussions, these were presented to the steering committee, comments were made, it was brought to the executive committee, and the executive committee made the final decision on the emphasis areas. So that is what I have on the emphasis areas, and I will turn it back to Khalid. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Dave just talked about the emphasis areas. For each of the 6 emphasis areas selected for the New Jersey 2020 Strategic Highway Safety Plan, we will have teams charged to develop action plans. For each of these teams, we have selected team leaders who will lead action plan development and also lead efforts to drive implementation of those action plans. Process for the nomination and approval of team leaders. The core working group asked the steering committee members for team leaders nominations, and NJDOT and New Jersey Division of Highway Traffic Safety weighted these nominations. The emphasis area team leaders candidates were ultimately presented to and approved by the executive committee. I'd like to introduce our safety manager, Dan Lisanti. He's the manager for safety, bicycle, and pedestrian program. Now I'll move out to take an opportunity to introduce our team leaders. Please refer, there's a brief bio in the program for all the team leaders. I ask the team leaders to stand and raise your hand when I call your name so that everyone can see you, who you are. Our team leader for lane departure is Vince Cardone of Monmouth County. Our team leader for intersections is Kimberly Singleton from the city of Newark. Our team leader for pedestrian and bicyclist is Elise Bremer-Nee from NJDOT. Our team leader for data is Lela Fritz from the New Jersey Turnpike Authority. Our team leader for driver behavior is Tracy Noble of AAA. And our team leader for other vulnerable road users is Andy Anderson of the New Jersey Bike and Walk Coalition. One more time, please give a round of applause for our team leaders who have a critical role in this process. We are very pleased to have such experienced people in these roles. Thank you to all of you. Now, on the work of the day. For the plan for the day, I would like to introduce Ryan Walsh of Fitzgerald and Halliday to walk us through the plan for the day.
Thank you, Khalid, and good morning to you all. It's my job to walk through the logistics and the plan for what we're doing today. So momentarily, we are going to break for the first of our two emphasis area breakout sessions. As you heard, there are 6 emphasis areas. All 6 will be the focus of a discussion group both in the morning and in the afternoon. So all participants will get to attend 2 breakout sessions, 2 different topics. If you are at all unclear about which topics you're attending, you can just look at your name tag. They are labeled both the AM session and the PM session. And if you have any further questions about that, you can ask at the registration desk. We assigned those emphasis area discussion groups based on preferences that people stated at registration, as well as availability of room space, and to provide a mix of perspectives in each room. If there's an emphasis area that you have a particular interest in or would like to provide feedback and you're not attending one of those sessions, out in the lobby, each emphasis area has a station that includes a comment box, and so you can submit your comments there. You can fill out a comment form, drop one. Each of the breakout sessions is scheduled for 90 minutes. And after the morning session, we're going to break for lunch. I have a little bit more info on that in just a moment. And then after lunch, we'll reconvene directly into the second breakout session. So when you come back for lunch, you go straight to your PM breakout session, and that will begin right at 1:15. We are running a little bit ahead of schedule, so I think we are going to take a slightly longer break than we had initially planned. But if everybody could plan on being in their morning breakout session by 10 o'clock, I think that will help along the process for the day. To give you a preview of what we'll be doing in the breakout sessions, our goals are to convey and understand the available data that informs the plan, and as well as identify data needs, to review the existing strategies that were part of the previous SHSP or other related initiatives, and then to brainstorm and identify new potential strategies and gather some initial thoughts on prioritization for those. There's a lot that we want to capture in those 90-minute sessions. So you'll be assisted by the team leader, a professional facilitator, as well as note takers to make sure that we capture everything. And again, if there's anything that you want to express in those breakout sessions that you don't have time to get to, you can always submit those comments via the comment boxes, both in the breakout rooms or in the lobby, or if after you've left today and you think of something else, you can always submit something via email or the website. And we're hoping to receive all of those comments by the end of the month to assist with the creation of the action plans. So lunch break information. We've provided an hour and a half for lunch. We would like to reconvene right back into the afternoon emphasis area breakout discussions at 1:15. There is one restaurant that is open here in the center. It's Traditions on the other side of the lobby. They have both a to-go window and seating for about 100 people. If you get there a little bit late, see that there's a long line, there are other restaurants that are open in campus town, just on the other side of the parking lots. So it is a short, albeit cold, walk away. There are other restaurants within driving distance, but if you have extra time, we'd encourage you to visit the emphasis area stations in the lobby and submit any comments or catch up on the information there. So lastly, this information is all in your program. This is the floor plan of where each of your rooms are. Your name tags are also color-coded. When you leave this room, you'll find that there are wayfinding signs as well as staff to help direct you to get to your AM breakout session. And if you have any questions about where you should go or how else the day is going to proceed, you can stop by the registration desk and somebody will be able to help you there. So I will thank you now. We'll take a break. You can have coffee, water, use the restroom. And let's plan on meeting in the emphasis area breakout rooms by 10 o'clock. So thank you very much.
I know it has been a long day of discussion. Your input has been very valuable to us, and I hope you found some value in those discussions as well. What we would like to do now is to quickly summarize some of the takeaways from each of the emphasis area sessions. We will ask each team leader to briefly, a minute or two, summarize a few of the key points. Let's start with Vince for lane departure.
So some of the key takeaways, especially with lane departure, the in-vehicle technologies have increased. It wasn't something that wasn't addressed in the 2015 safety plan. The advancements in the in-vehicle technologies, such as lane departure warnings, were discussed heavily, and maybe getting towards legislating that. Some of the data gaps include the roadway geometry, especially shoulder width and curve radius, stuff like that. Got more towards your asset management, specifically the lane markings and the quality of the signs and the quality of the lane markings. And some of the data that was presented didn't really say what type of vehicle, whether it was a larger vehicle or even for the passenger vehicles, getting more specifically into the type of vehicle. As far as education, there's not a lot of education on lane departure, but it does represent actually more than half of all the fatal serious injury crashes. And we need better communication and feedback between the agencies, the police officers, and engineers to understand the data needs, especially in filling out of the NJTR1 forms.
Thank you, Vince. Let's move on to Kimberly with intersections.
Hello, everyone. For us in intersections in the morning and the PM sessions, a big push was on just enforcement and education. Just enforcing drivers and just drivers, cyclists, pedestrians, just education about what the pavement markings are. Some folks are not even aware of what pavement markings are, signage. Just the education piece was one of our big takeaways. The second thing was focusing on inexpensive or easy to implement the geometric and signal changes. If you ever have to design and change your intersection 1 change, you have to upgrade the whole entire intersection. How can we do that? Can we have something, a method to do it in a short span of time, in a 5-year plan or in a 3-year plan, or just instant things that you can do overnight? That was a big discussion. And data. If you see it 3 times, it was a big thing. I don't want to take away from the data section, but just data and trying to unpack the information to do with the crashes, and just to understand how can we locate where the crashes are, and just the whole overall of just the data, crash diagrams, what's going on at the location, how can we find ways and strategies just to move forward. And that was like the 3 big takeaways from intersections. So a lot of what I've learned will probably intertwine between the 6 emphasis areas. So it'll probably overlap in some areas. And thank you.
Thank you, Kimberly. Let's move to Elise to talk about the pedestrian and bicyclists.
Okay, we talked about a lot of things, but data, we want a more holistic approach to the data. Demographics and equity were big, but also more in-depth as to specific causes of crashes that maybe the TR1 forms don't get at right now. The other one is both the transportation and the land use connection with bicycles and pedestrians, looking at the MLUL, the residential site improvement standards, things that already are in existence that could be changed in order to better support bicyclists and pedestrian infrastructure. The last one, education, also a common theme with others, but not just for the drivers, but also cyclists, pedestrians, law enforcement. I think someone also mentioned to me judges, possibly, as someone that needs to be educated about this. And another thing that came out of the afternoon that isn't captured here is they wanted the DOT to look at existing plans. One of them is our ADA transition plan, and the other one, they wanted an implementation plan for our Complete Streets policy. So I guess my office will be busy doing that.
Thank you, Elise. Tracy Noble to summarize the driver behavior.
Seems to be a common theme that it comes back to the data. One of the things is the need to digitize and standardize the data collection and improve the consistency across the platforms, so no surprise there. The need to address underreporting of bike ped crashes and the volumes and how they relate to the other areas and the other crashes that are identified. The reporting of the police agencies to ensure that all the agencies are providing complete data. Education also was a key topic, and standardizing messaging and how to get those messages out to the populations, to the underserved populations. So we need to do a better job in the communication of those messages. And one of the things that came up in the afternoon session that was interesting was a different enforcement approach. Instead of relying so heavily on the use of fines, possibly taking an approach to a community service aspect, so that it really hits home with those that are, violating the law, that they just cannot pay their way, that there are penalties that are going to encroach on their time and take away from and bite into their time. That might be an approach to look at to kind of curb some of these behaviors.
Thank you, Tracy. Moving on to Andy Anderson for other vulnerable users.
Well, welcome to the kitchen sink of emphasis areas. Everything that didn't fit in one of the others, they just dumped on this one. So I want to thank, first of all, everybody that showed up my sessions, and because they were very engaging, they're very passionate, and they gave me a lot of ideas. There's some of these topics that I'm very, very comfortable with. Some of them I don't really know a lot about, and their input is invaluable to me, and don't think you just got away from it just because you came to the summit. I'm going to be calling you and emailing and trying to get you to join my team. I bring cookies. So we know that we need to improve young driver training and education and strengthen parental engagement. Those are themes that we've known in the teen driving area for many, many years. And I have to say this, New Jersey does a phenomenal job as far as their teen engagement and teen programs in their GDL. We're recognized as one in the country as one of the models, but there are always room for improvement. So we need to work on that. Peer-to-peer training for young drivers, again, the Champion School program, which I can't emphasize enough as being phenomenal, that if you're not familiar with it, you should become familiar with it, especially if you have teenage kids. It's doing a wonderful job, and these kids are the ones, these teenagers are the ones that are finding the solutions. They're correcting themselves before they wreck themselves. Link data from all hospitals for mature drivers with medical conditions. Retest older drivers. When they retest older drivers, everybody went, oh. But one of the things that came out when they said, we start at 65, well, what about if we had two age groups, 65 to some 70, let's say, and then from 70 on, the supergenarians? Do we need to break down the data as far as that's concerned? And should we be looking at medical conditions that doctors and things, or physicians can look at their patients and say, you really, really should start to consider giving up driving, and let's have infrastructure in place for these people so that they're not stuck in their rooms, so that they have mobility alternatives, whether it be mass transit or something like that. And there is ways that we can do that. And there are also programs that can help get these people so that they, if they are having trouble with driving, at night or whatever it is, there are some things that they can adjust through programs through AARP and AAA. So electronic reports for data, okay, of course, we've been talking about this for years and years and years and years. I will say this, I think we can do a little bit better job of collecting data from the NJTR1. That comes to training. It comes from getting our law enforcement to understand what I did once I retired, that document is a living, breathing document that impacts a lot of lives, not just the people that are involved in the crash. And no, you are not doing it just for the insurance company. Improve work zone design and practices for training for EMS and volunteer firemen, tow trucks. That's going to have to be ongoing. There's a lot of ideas. There's a lot of things that are on the table. We need to find a way. We can implement them, but we need to find a way to evaluate them and make sure that they're working. So we came up with that. There were some really excellent ideas of using social media and things like that, of tying in for work zone safety to let the public know that they're out there. And I got really excited about that part because using things like Waves and Nixle and all those other things that are way beyond me, but my kids all understand. Social media wise, as far as getting the information out about these work zones, and most importantly, for when the work zone happens, you have the detour areas marked out for you, so you can like tell your GPS to go a detour, because it keeps telling you to go straight when you can't go straight because there's a work zone there. There are ways to improve that. So technology might help us out a lot. That's it. Thank you very much. And again, my team, Team Andy. Okay.
Thank you, Andy. Finally, so data. Let Fritz to summarize the data.
Thank you. I just want to send a special thanks to Pat, Adam, and Dave. Thank you so much for helping out today. We had 2 great engaging sessions, and some of the key takeaways were digitizing and standardizing data collection and creating a single data platform with an open data portal, improving training and requiring consistent data collection, and that's training on the NJTR1 from the inputter standpoint and from the data user standpoint, addressing the underreporting of bicycle and pedestrian crashes and lack of bicycle and pedestrian volume, and that also includes with or without the involvement of vehicles, and also expanding on the traffic monitoring system to include bike ped, NJ Transit infrastructure, and volume. And lastly, integrating data from traffic records, such as EMS, health, bike ped, traffic, road geometry. And those are really it. I mean, we definitely had a lot of other great comments and strategies, but those were the top 4 that we had. Thank you.
Thank you, Leila. I want to thank the team leaders for their summaries, and I want to thank all of you of your valuable input during these sessions. Next steps. Now just want to take a minute to let you know what comes next. New Jersey 2020 Strategic Highway Safety Plan schedule. Here's the big picture of the schedule. Today, we completed Safety Summit number 2. Our next steps are to develop draft action plans for each emphasis area by the end of February. Present these action plans to steering committee and executive committee by the end of March. And then hold Safety Summit number 3 in mid-April to share them all the safety stakeholders and discuss implementation over the next 5 years. Safety Summit number 3 is tentatively scheduled for April 16th back here at the College of New Jersey. It's a half day. Finalize SHSP and implementation plan by June of 20. Publish New Jersey 2020 Strategic Highway Safety Plan in July of 2020. We had a lot of great feedback and input today. However, we might not have captured everyone's comments today. So if you have any additional comments, we encourage you to submit your suggestions and comments on our website, www.saferoadsforallnj.com. saferoadsforallnj.com. You can also leave your comments in one of the comments boxes outside or give them to one of the staff members on your way out. We would like to have your comments by the end of the month if possible. Also, we would like to acknowledge our partners, FHWA, for their support. Keith and Amy, thank you. And if you are interested to be as a team member for any emphasis area, please contact the team leader or any of the staff. Now at this time, I would like to ask Assistant Commissioner Mike Russo to come back up as we close out for the day. Thank you.
So essentially, I'm just going to say my thank yous. This might turn into something like the Academy Awards. I hope I don't forget anybody here. First, I want to thank the stakeholders, all the participants. You didn't have to be here, but you wanted to be here, and I thank you for that. I want to thank the emphasis team leaders, Vince, Kimberly, Elise, Layla, Tracy, and Andy. I think you all should get a big round of applause. I want to thank Eric Heitman and DHTS for their support, our partners in this all the way through. I want to thank the DOT team. Khalid, you did a great job. Andy, Dan, Zenobia, Elise, thank you for your involvement. I also want to thank Dave Kuhn and his GPI team. These sessions would not happen without your support and your involvement, including Civic Eye, FHI, MBO. There's a lot of folks that make this happen. There's a lot of folks that made today a success. I want to thank all of you. Our team is excited about the work that was done here today. I think I went to every session and every room. People were actively engaged, and it's encouraging. Like I said, you all want to be here, and I think we're going to make a difference. Look forward to seeing the results in a few months, and look forward to seeing everybody back here in April at Safety Summit numbers 3. So thank you, everybody, and please have a safe trip home. Thank you.
Thank you.